boxing truth here. I wanted to talk about Kenny Porter's recent interview with Fight Hype and how he pretty much just shredded the IBF and stated that he's not going to do business with them any longer, that he's done with the IBF, his son will not be competing for any one of their championships, and he claimed that after Shawn Porter lost a decision to Kell Brook 2 years ago, 6 weeks later he was removed completely from the rankings, wasn't even ranked within the top 20 of the IBF. So I found that very, very interesting. So I did some research and to figure out if Kenny Porter was telling the truth, just to double check, because I was like, really, holy shit. So I looked back at the IBF rankings. Luckily on their site you can scroll back to what their ratings were in years past. And the interesting thing about the IBF ratings, as I checked back in the past on what the ratings were a couple of years ago, unfortunately the IBF, for whatever reason, does not have any ratings listed from September through hold on. No, never mind. Actually, it's September through November of 2014. There's nothing to be seen. There's nothing available, which is strange. There's no ratings listed from September of 2014 through November of 2014. And it's not until December of 2014 that something's listed within the IBF rankings. And you see Kell Brook as the champion, but the interesting claim on what Kenny Porter said is it doesn't seem to be true, but I can't say 100%. I don't have 100% proof because there's no ratings listed from September to November. But in December, the ratings came out in January of 2015, and they have Kell Brook listed as the champion, and there you see Shawn Porter rated number 6 within the IBF. So after a couple of months of no rankings, for whatever reason they're not listed, Shawn Porter was ranked number 6 for the December rankings in 2014. But the thing is, if you don't have a rematch clause, if you lose to your mandatory challenger and you hold a strap and you don't have a rematch clause, you're fucked. I mean, unless you're a big name or you're a guy who can generate a lot of money and it's a reason for the mandatory challenger who beat you and upset you on even on your home soil. If you don't have a big name, if he can't make a big payday off you, then you're fucked. You're not going to get a rematch, especially if you don't have a rematch clause and you're not a big draw, which Shawn Porter was neither when Kell Brook and Shawn Porter fought 2 years ago. And it's like this with every sanctioning body. If you lose your title and you don't have a rematch clause, you go to the bottom of the rankings. Now, Kenny Porter is saying he was completely off of the rankings. Now, I can't confirm that's true or if it's not true because there's no ratings listed from September to November of 2014. But he was rated within the IBF in the December rankings. He was within the top 10. But it's normal procedure. When you lose a title and you lose your strap, you go to the bottom of the rankings. You might not be all the way at the bottom. You might be number 14. You might be number 10. But you have to work your way back up after you lose a fight as the champion and you don't have a rematch clause. So just like with any other sanctioning body, you have to work your way back up in order to get a title shot. Unless you got connections, unless you can get another fight or whatever. It really depends on the situation of the fighter. Is he a name? Is he a draw? Is a lot of guys lining up to him to fight? Is he going to be cherry-picked by a champion within the top 15 of their rankings? It really depends on the fighter. And in Shawn Porter's case, he got fucked. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he didn't have a rematch clause, and he was put down to the bottom of the rankings like any other fighter should in his situation. And the rematch never happened. And it's, of course, the Porters will say Kell Brook didn't want the work. He wasn't interested, wasn't calling his name. And that by after a year of taking that L to Kell Brook and getting schooled and losing his strap on his own home soil, they say they pretty much moved on from the Kell Brook rematch. But nah, man, it was Al Heyman that told y'all to move on. They said he pretty. I mean, going by their actions of what happened after that rematch and the plans Heyman set up for Porter following that fight, he had a different plan for Porter, and it wasn't going to be a Kell Brook rematch. Look, it's only Kell Brook went to the United States to fight Porter, took his strap, schooled him, embarrassed him, made him look like shit in that fight. And Kenny Porter will try to blame that Kell Brook was doing a lot of holding, but Shawn Porter had a lot to do with that as well by bum rushing Kell Brook and smothering his own work and not placing the right distance between him and Kell Brook to land more effective shots, which he failed mightily to do in that fight. And the big reason why he lost, because Kell Brook was the cleaner, more effective fighter with his punches. And he looked a lot cooler in the ring compared to Shawn Porter, which is why he clearly won the fight, in my opinion. Now, don't talk about the punch stats. I don't give a shit about punch stats. That's not how I score fights. That's not how I talk about fights. I talk about what I see with my own eyes. I don't give a shit about punch stats. Because most of the times, especially when it comes to networks, Showtime, doesn't matter who it is, HBO, Showtime, PBC, they're most of the times not very accurate, especially when it comes to a house fighter who they want to win. So I don't give a shit about punch stats, so don't mention that in the comments. But Porter got schooled, lost the fight clearly, and of course, naturally he wanted the rematch, but it's not up to him, it's up to his advisor, Heyman. He controls his career. He makes the plans. He puts the opponents in front of him. And it's only right for Porter to go over to the UK if he wanted the rematch. If he really wanted the rematch and avenge his loss, he would have demanded that fight. And if he had to go to the UK, he would have done it. But Heyman didn't want that work. He saw that Porter got schooled. And potentially could be even worse had Porter had to travel over to the UK to fight Brook in a rematch. So he said, hell nah, I'm good. I have other plans for Shawn Porter, and you saw the plans. He took a tune-up fight with, forgot his name, the dude that fought Chris Algieri as well. I can't remember his name. I forgot his name. A no-name guy. He won the fight on a PBC show. Then he ended up fighting Broner. He was pretty much set up to lose that fight. A catch weight. There was a rehydration clause negotiated, but then ultimately canceled. Porter ended up pulling off the minor upset, even though I did pick him to win that fight. And then he had the plans to fight Keith Thurman. So Heyman opted to make in-house fights for Shawn Porter rather than send Shawn Porter to the UK and take on Kell Brook and just to take another L, because Kell Brook would have been a huge favorite in the rematch, especially on his home soil this time. It would have been a very tough fight for Porter. And Porter would have made more money had he gone that route. I mean, if he compared to the first fight, I mean, the purses reported for that fight in the UK, for that fight, the first fight that took place at the StubHub, Porter only got $500K. A purse of $500K for the first fight, and he would have gotten more had he traveled, since there's a bigger market out there for the rematch to fight Kell Brook. But he didn't take that option. I mean, it's not like it really hurt him that bad. I mean, he ended up making good paydays to fight Broner, and then to fight Keith Thurman. Made $1 million, cool $1 million for each fight. Picked up another name on his resume despite being a shitty fight with Broner. Then he lost a close fight with Keith Thurman that a lot of people felt he won. So Porter is in a position where he wants big fights. He's been in high profile fights. He's fought both Kell Brook and Keith Thurman. Those are his 2 losses. Though people will have a big debate about Thurman Porter. I felt Thurman won the fight, but it was close. I'm not going to argue with that. You can argue a draw. You want to say Shawn Porter won by close, 2 points, fine. But it was that type of fight. People are split on that fight, and that's the point. I mean, you can't say that Thurman didn't win that fight when it was that close, and vice versa. You can have your own opinion about it, but to say that you're blind or you don't know shit about boxing just because you felt Thurman won, I disagree. I felt he landed the cleaner shots. It is what it is. It's over. It's done with. The judges scored it fairly. It wasn't a robbery. It's not like there was these ridiculous scores. It was scored fairly, and Thurman got the decision. So I just found it interesting about what Kenny said about the IBF. Though by December of 2014, Shawn Porter was within the top 10 of those rankings. But he's saying that he's done with the IBF. He doesn't want his son to be fighting for that organization. So it looks like that Errol Spence fight, if he ends up picking up the IBF strap, will probably not happen since the Porters don't want anything to do with the IBF. Now, when it comes to Porter and Spence, Porter doesn't have to fight Spence right now. I mean, Spence has his own path, and the path is he's waiting on his mandated shot with the IBF. That's all Spence needs to worry about right now. And Porter, he's looking for bigger fights, bigger names within the Al Haymon stable, more in-house fights. They want Danny Garcia. They want the Thurman rematch. So they're going to position themselves to take another big fight within the Al Haymon stable. So they may take an interim fight to get sharper for a Thurman rematch. Or maybe the Garcia-Berto fight will fall through, and the Porters are very willingly to take that slot in case the Berto fight does fall through with Danny Garcia. So Porter, he's gonna opt for bigger fights. He's paid his dues. He's been a champion. He's waited for big fights. He finally got them. He didn't win, but he showed a good case of himself in the fight against Thurman, because it was a close fight. Against Brook, he had a shitty night. He got schooled, got outboxed, couldn't get inside, looked ugly in the fight, initiated a lot of the clinches himself as well. But he didn't want. I mean, whatever happens, I'm not saying they didn't want the work, but Haymon or his team, they didn't really push for the rematch because they weren't willing to send him to the UK. So they opted for other plans, and it worked out well for Porter. He ended up getting other big fights, some decent paydays, and now he's in position to fight for another payday, or perhaps a second crack at Thurman's title, and all is good. But the Porters are done with the IBF, and if a potential Spence Porter fight happens, it will have to be bigger than it is now, since they're looking for bigger fights, bigger names. But I don't see Porter avoiding Spence if Spence continues to rise and creates a reign of his own within the welterweight division. The fight needs to be built up a little more. Doesn't really make sense now since Spence is still a challenger. So relax with the Porter, Duck, and Spence bullshit. It's just idiotic statements. But now, with this issue with the IBF, who knows if that fight will even happen. But it is what it is. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.